Hello and welcome to a Wednesday night. It's possibly going to be one of the more drab Wednesdays you'll have to experience up here on the Heights, but it's important. This is a book called The Approaching Hoofbeats, The Four Horsemen of the Apocalypse. And it's by a Christian, whose name I'll just leave out because it'll bring up a bunch of baggage for you. Do you really want to carry some baggage around? No, I don't think you do. I know you don't, actually. So, I'm going to read it to you. And at first it's going to be a bit boring, but the point of the book is that this guy, this individual, has looked at Revelation, the book of Revelation, and all the tribulations that happen to humanity. And like myself, he's decided that it doesn't have to happen all at once. We've been working really hard, positive energy, with love, with understanding, with truth, and pushing the football down the other way to score for our team, to make it so the tribulations are spread out more. When you look at them from a distance, they're like mountains. They look like they're all just right there. But the closer you get to this kind of reality, supernatural reality, the more you can see, hey, there's room for one mountain to be here and the other mountain to be 100 years in the future, maybe even 1,000 years in the future, like the Battle of Gog and Magog. As I told you before, all of us want Christ to return, because that would just make it a lot easier. But the thing is that Christ is up there in the heavens. He'll come back just the way he left, up, down, same thing. Up into the sky he went, down from the sky he'll come. But he has sent us to get this place straightened up for the 1,000-year reign with Christ in our hearts prior to his arrival. So, would you want to come back to a completely messed up house? No. So what you do is you send your people, and your people make it good, so that when you can come with some grace, some dignity, a little bit of respect. Love that word. So here we go. This is chapter 1, The Thunder of Distant Hoofbeats, and takes a little while to get into it, so kind of just chill out and grab a glass of water, beer, wine, something to smoke, whatever it is that helps you relax and kind of get into a different space. On the barren rock-strewn island of the Aegean Sea, almost 2,000 years ago, another old man put his ear to the ground and heard the earth rumble ominously. Unlike Harry Truman at Spirit Lake, near Mount St. Helens, John the Apostle, on the Isle of Patmos, heard the thunder of distant hoofbeats, sounded the alarm. And that alarm, John's words of warning, are as clear and urgent today as they were 20 centuries before. Picture it. Tradition tells us that John's face is wrinkled, burned, almost black by the sun. His arms are gnarled and his knees knobbed. His feet and hands are rough and calloused. He is a political prisoner of Rome, in exile off the coast of Asia Minor, modern-day Turkey. John carries granite shipped from the cliffs above the sea to the dock beneath the Roman citadel. It guards the narrow isthmus between the Bay of Scala and the Bay of Myrka. Pronunciation your own. The gravel will be used to build foundations for the temples and palaces of the Emperor Domitian, or to pave the road across his empire. We can imagine that John, stumbling under the load of straw baskets strapped to his forehead, used both hands to grasp his staff and pick his way painfully down the treacherous trail. Even the Roman guards must have wondered at the determination of this gray-bearded Jewish Christian who works alongside the other prisoners day by day, then spends his evenings writing stories they cannot understand. On the Lord's day, quote, "On the Lord's day, I was in the Spirit," John wrote, "and I heard behind me a loud voice like a trumpet which said, 'Write on a scroll what you see and send it to the 7 churches, to Ephesus, Samaria, Pergamum, Tyrus, Sidar, Philadelphia, and Laodicea. And so, in his cave-like prison cell, John the seer spent every free moment recording the semaphoric writing, a warning. Semaphore is what you do on an aircraft carrier to get the plane to land. It's a set of signals. We don't know anything about signals, do we, children? Nah, never. Warning to the world, semaphoric warning of a world bulging and buckling just beneath the surface. His ancient world was not unlike our own. The vision. These stories of urgency and warning, written over the next 18 months of John's exile on the island, were copied and sent as instructions to the 7 churches of Asia. Eventually, this apocalypse of St. John was titled by its opening line, A Revelation of Jesus Christ, or simply Revelation, and became the last and perhaps the most controversial of the New Testament books. Often in the history of the church, the book of Revelation has been neglected, misunderstood, misinterpreted by far too many Christians, or misinterpreted by far too many Christians. William Barclay wrote, "The Revelation is notoriously the most difficult and bewildering book of the New Testament, but doubtless, too, we shall find it infinitely worthwhile to wrestle with it until it gives us its blessing and opens its riches to us." Because of the vast technological advances of the past few years, the book of Revelation is more easily understood. Many of the things that I used to think were symbolic are now realities in our world. Chip in the right hand. Yikes. For some reason, strange though it be, the book is not being taught or preached on as much as it was in the earlier part of the century. Probably because it looks a little too scary, a little too real. And yet, at the beginning of the book of Revelation, the scripture says, "Blessed is the one who reads the words of this prophecy, and blessed are those who hear it and take to heart what is written in it, because the time is near." Now let's talk about that. Everybody's going to go and meet Christ. Every knee will bow. So the time is near has 2 meanings. One, the things that are going to happen, the revelation, if it were singular, is near in the sense that the earth is very old, and now we're just right almost on top of it. Now, 2,000 years later, war, famine, starvation happening all over the planet. So that's happening in a big sense now, but for every single one of us, it's near because the day of our death is nobody knows when it is, and when it happens, you're going to meet the Lord. So for you, for me, for all humans, we always have that sense of urgency. We really need to act. We can't just let our lives blow away. All right, so here we go again. The morning I wrote these words, I had read in the paper a quote by one of the great literary and political leaders of our time. He used the very same expression, "The time is near, but I probably will not live to see the end." That is the irony. The book of Revelation may be difficult and demanding to read, yet it is the only biblical book whose author promised a blessing for those who read it. I am an evangelist, not a scholar, but I have spent a life vigorously investigating, inspiring, and informing, and being informed by the warnings of this dramatic book written under the inspiration of John on the Isle of Patmos, inspiration which he gathered from among the stones of fire, which are typically found on islands. You get an island, you get humidity, you happen to have cattle, you have cattle dung, you have the name of God. It's just one of those things that was very common in the ancient world when there was a lot more greenery, and it's still common today in places like Hawaii. Right here then, that is the irony. the book of Revelations may be difficult, demanding reading. I'm an evangelist, not a scholar. But I spent my life researching this. By the warnings of this dramatic book written under the inspiration of John on the Isle of Patmos. In my study at home, I have read thousands of commentaries, pages, articles, and words of study on Revelation. In my devotions, I have let John's words flow over me, listened to the voice of God speak through John's island voices. That's interesting. Until now, I have resisted adding my own feeble efforts to the great minds of the century who have grappled with the meaning of John's visions. But I can resist no longer.